Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the City of East Providence City Council meeting. Today is Tuesday, April 5th, 2022. Deputy Clerk, may we start off with a roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Councilman Cahoon.
Here.
Councilman Morato.
Here.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Here.
Councilwoman Souza. Here. Council President Brito.
Yeah, thank you. Chair will recognize a motion for the City Council meeting, close executive session pursuant to Rhode Island General Laws 42-46-5A2 for the following items: A, new claims; B, sewer abatement; C, to review the discussion of possible vote and obtaining a memorandum of understanding between the city and PO Local 5569 and pursuant to Rhode Island General Laws 42-46-5A2 litigation. Anyone at this point in time like to make a motion to go into executive session?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
We have a second on that motion.
Second.
Deputy Clerk, may we have a roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morato.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council President Brito.
Aye. Motion to go in executive session is passed by a vote of 5-0. We will now proceed in executive session and reconvene immediately following. Thank you.
Hi, Pretty. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, very good. I think as long as the mics are on, you should be able to hear everyone once I get back from executive session.
Okay, sounds good.
Great.
How soon? How soon would they be back?
It depends. They have a couple of items to go over, but they're usually back, between 15 minutes and a half an hour at the most.
Okay. All right, I'll be here.
All right, thank you.
To the City of East Providence City Council meeting. Today is Tuesday, April 5th, 2022. May we all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Deputy Clerk, may we start off with a roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Councilman Cahoon,
I'm here.
Councilman Morato.
Here.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Here.
Councilwoman Souza.
Here.
Council President Brito.
Yeah. Just one quick announcement. Anybody wishing to sign up for public comment, please do so now, or it's going to be closed. There's your opportunity, otherwise it's closed. If not, okay. Next item, please.
We have the motion to seal the executive session minutes.
Do we have a motion on the floor for someone to seal the executive session minutes?
So moved, Mr. President.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Deputy Clerk, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, sir. Councilman Cahoon,
Aye.
Councilman Morato.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council President Brito.
Aye. Next item, please.
Consent calendar. We have the council journals, the regular meeting minutes from March 15th, the workshop meeting from March 22nd, the special meeting from March 29th, and the executive session minutes from March 15th.
At the pleasure of the council, anyone have any questions or concerns regarding these meeting minutes?
No, sir. Move to approve.
Do I have a second on the motion?
Second.
We also have the, just so you know, the letters, the notice of new property number and the tax abatements in the amount of $324.28.
Those
Okay.
are all included within the consent calendar.
Yes,
All right.
correct.
I thought that was a second item. Yeah. All right, very good. We have a motion. It was seconded. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, sir. Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morato.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council President Brito.
Aye. Next item, please.
Next
Mr.
item.
Yes.
I'm sorry if I may just interrupt. I have an item on here with regard to a resolution pending for a land acknowledgement. We have a number of folks I know that are interested in speaking on that item and probably just that item. I wondered if there's any appetite for the council to kind of move that up.
It actually will be,
I don't have an issue with that. We do have, if you don't mind, we have one licenses on here.
Let's do that.
If we could
please,
just
and
do
then-
that one and then
if it's
jump
okay
into
with the
your
council, we can-
resolution. Is
Absolutely.
that okay?
Yep.
Okay. So
Ready.
proceed, please.
okay. The next item would be licenses. It's a non-public hearing. The application for holiday sales, it's a new one. The applicant is Amelia Olson. The business name is Tall Tumbleweed LLC. The business address is 273 to 279 Bullocks Point Avenue.
Any issues with the application? They have all their paperwork in?
Yes,
I'll leave it at the pleasure of the council. Any questions, concerns, issues?
No, sir. Move
Anything
to
you need to
approve.
discuss? We have a motion on the floor to approve by Councilman
Second.
Cahoon. We have a second by Councilman Rodrick. Roll call vote, please.
Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morato.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council President Brito.
Aye. Councilman Cahoon, you want to proceed with your resolution, please?
Yes, sir, if you don't mind.
Not at all.
So the resolution item is under C2 resolutions. This specific resolution is land acknowledgement, specifically acknowledging East Providence as part of Solms, the ancestral home of the Pokanoket tribe. This is sponsored by Council Vice President Rodrick and myself. I think I could speak to this, but I think we have a number of people here that are better qualified and can do a better job of speaking to it than I can or Councilman Rodrick can. So at the pleasure of the council, Mr. President, I'd like to give them an opportunity to do so.
Please do. Okay. Anyone here by name you can call out?
Yes, we do. So we have a number of folks and they're all signed up under public comment. So I don't know, Dr. Weed, would you care to begin? All right.
Dr. Weed, could you just make sure that mic is on? I'll turn green if it's on. Is it green? No, you got to hit the button.
Now it's green.
There you go.
Okay,
Thank you.
you can hear me. Well, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. I'm Dr. David Weed. I'm a resident of Warren, Rhode Island. The first town in all of New England that we know of that passed a similar resolution to recognize the Pokanoket tribe as the original residents of our town. If you drive through Warren sometime, look up at Town Hall and you will see a plaque up there that has been there for the existence of the building for 100 years, saying Soames 1621. Soames is the name of the territory that the Massasoit Usamiquan, you recall from what little you learned or were taught in school that it was Osamiquan who met the Pilgrims in 1621 and who signed a treaty. That treaty guaranteed the survival of both the English and of the tribe who had been decimated by a great plague that had killed over 90% of them along the coast in 1616, 1619. That treaty protected both the tribe and the English. It led to the English survival to the extent that they expanded in their territory, and eventually we ended up with a war in 1675, King Philip War. After that war concluded, most of the people who had been living here for 10,000 years or more were forced to leave the area. They have come back. They have continued to live here, often disguised, often having to merge in with other tribes and not having the opportunity to reveal their identity and to reclaim their history. We're in the process through a project called the Soames Heritage Area of recovering that history and helping people throughout not only our area, but across the country to understand what really happened in 1621 and in the 100 years that followed. Getting land recognition is one of the steps in the process of helping people to recognize their own history. And we're very proud in Warren to be the first to do that. The town of Barrington followed that 6 months later in December. And tonight, thanks to Councilman Cahoon and Councilman Rodrick, we have the opportunity to add a third East Bay community to recognize the original inhabitants of this area. So I hope you will take this into consideration and pass this unanimously, as have the other two towns, so that we can really make a statement to people who live here and people across the country and around the world as to what happened here. Do you have any questions that I can answer? Okay.
I don't have a question, but just a quick acknowledgement that the Native Americans, the Pokanoket tribe, is here every year. We acknowledge that tribe here for Native American Day. And for those of you who don't understand the tribe, what they've done, where they've been, and how they got to where they are, it's a very interesting learning process to listen to the history behind the Pokanoket tribe. And it's really interesting, actually. So I recommend next time when they have Native American Day, that embrace it and come in, and you can learn a lot more about the culture in itself.
Yes, and all of those are recorded on the Soames Heritage Area website. So you don't have to wait till next fall.
Yeah.
You can hear them anytime. So hopefully there are other members here who are going to respond. So
Okay.
Thank
you, sir.
To that. Thank you very much.
right.
Mr. President, I think probably next, I've worked primarily with Sachem Tracy, Dancing Star Brown. I believe she's here. I'd like to call her forward to say a few words.
Aquini, hello. I am Po Pumaquankanakis, translated Dancing Star. I'm station of the Pokanoket tribe of the Pokanoket Nation. And I commend you for bringing this to the table this evening. And I am here to answer any questions. Land acknowledgement, I think that is so important because Soames, which East Providence is a part of, is such an amazing, important part of the history of this country. And the people who live in East Providence, they need to know that, they need to be educated on it, they need to embrace it. And, in doing that, it builds pride, it builds community, it's an opportunity for education. And when you recognize the first peoples, of the land, then it opens the door for the recognition of others who have come afterwards. So, it's very important. And, our people, we embrace stewardship. And, again, when people take pride in where they live, they take care of where they live. So, I just think it's very important. It's a very important part of history. It's very important for all of us to, have this foundation of acknowledging the land on which we all share together. So if there are any questions, I'm more than happy to.
I would just like to thank you for, your guidance and your education on this journey as we started talking, I think back in November
Yes.
about this and, trying to come up with a resolution and pick a right date. So thank you very much for your time and effort there.
You're welcome. And I also have the Sagamore of the nation is here and our tribal historian. And if you would like for them to, come up for any comments, they are here.
I noticed Mr. Edmonds just walked in with his brother as well.
And
so I'm
Station
sure he
Harry
has a
Hawk
lot to say.
Edmonds is here. And Elder Lee Braveheart Edmonds as well. So we do have other tribal members here. Thank you.
Please, as they'd like to come up.
Spot me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Aho. Can I
Good
get
evening.
an aho from you folks?
Aho,
Aho.
aho.
That's a native greeting. First of all, I want to thank the council for this Land Acknowledgement Act. To accept the fact that the Pokanokets are still here. We're a people that's been here for thousands of years. But what I'd like to do is offer a sacred tobacco prayer in the language of my people. The language that we were deprived from speaking so many years ago, 1675, 1676. That was during the King Philip's War. My ancestors fought that war to save their way of life, preserve their culture. So the language was taken from them. They were deprived from speaking it. They had to assimilate in order to survive and adapt the ways of the settlers. But like I say, we're still here. Now this sacred tobacco prayer is all about honor and respect, which is the native way. And the honor and respect is somewhat lost in today's world, but we have to get it back. We've lost respecting one another and honoring one another. So with this Land Acknowledgement Act, it's a sign of respect and honor, and I want to thank the council once again for doing that. That's a beginning. I will also offer this sacred tobacco prayer in the English language, so you don't think I'm talking gibberish. If I could get everyone to stand, remove your hats. We use sacred tobacco in many of our ceremonies. Of course, we don't condone the use of tobacco products other than for sacred ceremonial purposes. I will begin. Katantuit numagni owitamog. Aki numagni owitamog. Okamus. Nupashad numagni owitamog. Wuchi chi kiriasan. Nupawas. Numagni owitamog. Tubatni anawayan. Numagni owitamog or you uk nashikaki. Wampanayu. Sowanayu. Patanayu, Nanamayu, Tabatni Anawayan, Nuwachi, Wami, Nitam Pog, Neg Pamaninachig, Neg Pamambachig, Papanashimwag, Metakosh Ka Maski Tosh, Nemosag, Quitianamu, Kui, Chininamachig, Atuk, Mask, Bakwashin, Tunapasag, Snapasag, Katadawit, Numagni, Oitamog. Oh, Great Spirit, I offer this tobacco. Mother Earth, I offer this tobacco. Grandmother Moon, I offer this tobacco. Grandfather's son, I offer this tobacco. I thank you. I offer this tobacco to the four directions, to the east, to the south, to the west, to the north. I thank you for all my relations, the winged nation, the creeping, crawling nation, the four-legged nation, the green and growing nation, and all things living in the water. Honoring the clans, the deer, the bear, the wolf, the turtle, the snipe, the rabbit. Great Spirit, I offer this tobacco. Oh, I thank this council, Katabatash. Oh, thank you.
Mr. Edmonds, could you stay here for a moment? Mr. President, if I may I call you the Hawk?
You know how I got that name.
I do.
Danny
And
Simbron came back with name, but playing East Providence High School, you're right.
for those who don't know, Mr. Edmonds, AKA the Hawk, not only was one of the first peoples of the East Bay, not you personally, but you know, your history, he was an all-star, all-state graduate of East Providence High School, 1956, I wrote down.
Exactly. Wow. Beautiful.
And it was said by the University of Rhode Island at that time that you were the shining star in all of Rhode Island in interscholastic sports, one of the best basketball players to ever come out of EP in the state of Rhode Island. And as we all get older, people tend to forget, but the Hawk's name is around, also a member of the East Providence High School Hall of Fame. So thank you for keeping your townie roots as well as the other roots that you bring here tonight. And I was pleased and thank Mr. Councilman Cahoon. We met a few months ago to talk about this, and hopefully tonight it will come to fruition.
Thank you, Bobby Roderick. I appreciate that. Quanunin in the language is hawk. Quanunin, hawk. One other thing I want to leave you with. I come off the line of Anawan. He was the war chief to the Massasoit, Usamiquin or Yellow Feather. He was the one that kept peace with the settlers for over 55 years until he died. And then, of course, the King Philip's War broke out, if you know about your colonial history. But when Anawan was fighting the settlers to save the land and their way of life, he was heard to cry out in battle, Ayutash, Ayutash, stand firm and fight, Ayutash. So I leave that with you folks today. Don't ever give up. Ayutash. Aho.
Thank you. Thank you. Councilman Cahoon?
Is there anyone else who would like to speak? If not, we can proceed with the resolution.
Please do.
All right. I'd like to give me 1 second.
Hold on. I think we have one more.
Actually, that'll give me time to pull it up too. So.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
I'm Dr. William Guy. I am also the Sagamore Pole Warping Neopog of the Pokanoket tribe of the Pokanoket Nation. Harry is one of my sub-chiefs, and so is Dancing Star. I am the head chief of all the nation. Harry's from Anawan's line. I'm from King Philip's line. My great-grandfather, Massasoit Osamequin, Massasoit is a title, which means great leader. He's the great leader of one of the largest Indian nations in colonial America. At that time, there were 60 tribes, bands, and clans in that nation. And this whole area, southeastern Mass, and of course, East Providence was part of Seacock at that time, was known as Pokanoket country. Any map prior to the King Philip War, 1675, 1676, says right on it, Pokanoket country, King Philip country, including the John Sellers map, who was the map maker to the King of England. I'm 10th generation great grandson of the Massasoit Osamequin, who welcomed the Pilgrims to this country and signed the first peace treaty with the Europeans, which allowed everyone to come here. I'm 9th generation great grandson of King Philip. You know him historically as King Philip. His name was Metacomet or Po Metacom or Po Metacomet. And I'm also 6th generation great grandson of Simeon Simons, who was George Washington's handpicked bodyguard. He's the only man that George Washington trusts to watch over him when he slept. And he's also in the Griswold Town Hall. There's a portrait of him and George Washington. He's also on the bicentennial coin of the town of Griswold, Connecticut, 200-year celebration of this country as a country, 1676 to 1776 to 1976. The reason why I mentioned Simeon Simon, that's King Philip's great grandson. That Indian that you see downtown Providence, Indian princess, she was the last chief before me of our tribe. That's Princess Red Wing. She was the first Indian to address the United Nations in 1946. And she is also in the Rhode Island Heritage Hall of Fame. That's my mother's first cousin. That's my first cousin once removed. The history, a lot of people don't know who Pokanoket is because during the King Philip War, 1675, 1676, they outlawed the word Pokanoket. And if you were the colonial government, try to expunge it from the dictionary. If you said that you were Pokanoket, they'd kill you on sight if you were male 14 years of age, older. And at that time, they started calling us Wampanoag. But there were no Wampanoag the first 50 years of encounters with the European. They never even heard of the word. If you read the Massachusetts Archaeological Society, according to them, they never heard of the word. It was never recorded anywhere in history until during the King Philip War. So basically, Hawk, that's my first cousin on my father's side. On my mother's side, I come down from King Philip. On my father's side, I come down from Anawan. I'm a 10th generation great grandson of Anawan, who was the head Piney warrior for the Massasoit Osamequin, and then for his son, King Philip. So it was actually King Philip's uncle, Anawan. So that's my line on both sides is open. And if I'm honored to be here tonight and glad to that you have received us and taken into consideration this land acknowledgement. Just want you to know that the Pokanokets lived in Soams, and Soams at the time of the Massasoit didn't only take in Barrington, Warren, and Bristol, which happened in 1748, 1748, somewhere in there, but it was also Swansea, Rehoboth, Seacon. This was all Bristol County, Massachusetts at one time. Today it's Bristol County, Rhode Island, except for this here is Providence County, East Providence. So the land boundaries have changed through the years, and a lot of people aren't aware of it. But this is where the actual history of this country started, right here in this area. It was the most densely populated area at that time, and so a lot of people don't realize that treaty that was signed right in Warren, right over there where Blount Seafood is. A lot of people think this took place down the Cape. It didn't take place down the Cape. It took place here. They came up here to meet the master surveyor. So if there's any question that I need to answer, I'll be glad to answer them for you. But I want to thank you for having us here this evening and allowing us the opportunity to address the town council. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I'm aware of a little history of King Philip. He's on our Bristol Town Seal and actually on our police badges also. And there's a talk about the King Philip chair in Bristol, and a lot of those streets are actually named after a bunch of tribes, Soames, Metacomet, and quite a few streets. So there's a lot of history also in Bristol.
Councilman Cahoon.
So if no one else wants to speak, we'll go ahead and proceed with the resolution.
Councilman Cahoon, would you like to read off that resolution
I
for us,
would,
please?
and I actually I didn't grab the hard
Yeah, I could-
copy. Let me grab this. Thank you. All right. So the resolution reads as follows. State of Rhode Island, City of East Providence. Resolution acknowledging East Providence as a part of Soames, the ancestral home of the Pokanoket tribe. Whereas East Providence is one of several Rhode Island cities and towns within the Soames heritage area. And whereas Soames is the ancestral home of the Pokanoket tribe, where they lived and thrived for the nearly 12,000 years between the last glacial retreat and the establishment of European colonies in New England. And whereas Soames is historically significant as a cultural nexus between Indigenous and European peoples, and whereas the towns of Barrington and Warren have officially acknowledged these facts, that their boundaries lie within the Soames heritage area, and whereas the City of East Providence City Council pays honor to and has deep respect for the ancestries and cultural contributions of all its people. Now therefore be it resolved that the City Council of the City of East Providence makes the following land acknowledgement to be displayed at the beginning of all future council meetings. Welcome to Soames, the ancestral home of the Pokanoket people for 10,000 years prior to settler colonization. We pay tribute to the tribal elders and people of this community who served and continue to serve as stewards of the land and waterways of Rhode Island and Massachusetts. We recognize the unique and enduring relationship that exists between Indigenous people and their traditional territories. We acknowledge that our community was a part of the larger ancestral, I think we got cut up. Sorry about that. The larger ancestral homeland of the Pokanoket Nation. Let this acknowledgement serve as a reminder for our ongoing efforts to recognize, honor, reconcile, and partner with the Pokanoket people for the benefit of the lands and water of Soames. This resolution shall take effect upon passage. And that's it. And so said, I move to approve the resolution as read.
We have a motion on the floor to approve the motion as read. Would anyone like to second that motion?
Second.
Okay, we have a second on the floor as well. Deputy Clerk, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, sir. Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morato.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council President Brito.
Aye. Thank you.
Bless you.
Thank you all. Thank you, Councilman. Cahoon.
Thanks for
Thank
the
you.
opportunity to move that up. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Dr. Weeks.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Dr. Reed.
We do not have any proclamations or presentations, no communications, and public comment. We do have 2 remaining. God bless you. So the first person under public comment is Shirley Cloutier. I'm sorry, ma'am. Clouder.
My name's Shirley Cloutier.
That was close, sorry.
Sure. Thank you. Yes. Rodents.
Okay, my name is Shirley Cloutier. I live at 15 Madeline Drive, East Providence, Riverside, Rhode Island. This situation with the rats First time in 23 years we ever seen a rat on our property or anyone else's property on that street. Last summer, the end of the summer, my neighbor put chickens in her yard. We fought and fought against it. They made her go to court. She had to get rid of them. Not a problem. She also had 13 bird feeders on her front yard, feeding all these birds. This draws rats. The chicken food, the bird food, and she also had a doggy daycare going on with approximately 8 dogs at a time in her backyard, and all that dog crap draws rats. These rats are very smart. They can smell food a mile away. They'll come by any means and get it. I know she got rid of them, but her run is 20 by 10, and she has fed the chickens in that run, so there's chicken food that's in there. She has bins of chicken food in that run, and these rats will bite through wire, plastic, and any other way they can get to what they need. When it starts getting cool, they come into people's houses. They'll go under your deck, under your shed, under anywhere to find shelter. Well, they found their way, that big one, in my garage, which we trapped. There was another big one that we trapped, but unfortunately I deleted the picture of that one, so you only get 2. And the third one in the house that was in the attic. Now, we've gotten field mice now and then because of what's behind us. There's 100 acres of woods behind us. Since the waste management system has gone into place, we have not had any rodent issues whatsoever. That's the best thing you guys ever did. And I don't want to see that destroyed by doing this. So before you decide that you want to do something about having a chicken ordinance, take this into consideration. We have fox, we have coyotes behind us. You all know that you just caught a coyote in Mr. Cahoon's neighborhood, and they trapped him, tagged him, and let him go so they could watch what they do. That's what you're supposed to do with wildlife. The 3 weeks that she had them there, I had howling up under my bedroom window, 1:30 in the morning, 11:30 at night, 4 o'clock in the morning with this fox howling because the food is there. Never had that before. Okay, we see them up and down the street catching squirrels, having their feed. Right now, the pups are born, the kits. The fox kits are all born, the coyote pups are all born, and they'll be out in force looking for food to feed their family. That's Mother Nature. We shouldn't interfere with that, okay? But this is the result of what you're gonna have in the city if you allow this, because the rats will come. Now, I have my neighbor here with me, and he can verify that we haven't had any rodent problem in our neighborhood at all. I have given you a packet, and in that packet will show you comments in the next door website, the Riverside area. I don't have anything from Rumford because I'm not into that. But you'll see how many people have complained. There's been cats missing. So that's telling you a story. Down the terrace, they've been seen. Mr. Morato's neighborhood, they've been seen. They've been seen down near Haynes Park, you know, on our side, East Providence side of Haynes Park. So it's become an issue. The more land that you take away from us with development, the worse this problem's going to get. I see the people here from Metacomet. They're absolutely right. We need to have green space. We need to save what we have. Development is great. It's not going to increase your tax base because those people that are going to pay those taxes are not the people that have to live here and put up with it. I was a tax assessor here for 10 years. I did my job as a tax assessor. I was fair to everybody. I don't take one person into consideration and say, well, you want this, so I'll help you. No, you count, you count, you count, you count. We all count in the city. I don't care what district you're from. My district has 100 acres of woods behind me. Matter of fact, I call it Christopher Robin's 100-acre woods, okay? I was brought up in a very strict Portuguese family. I understand how these people would like to have things like that. That's wonderful, but it doesn't work for everybody, okay? And my father always told me and brought me up to say, If you don't speak the truth, don't speak at all. And this is the truth about the subject. So, you have any questions for me?
Any questions?
Nick?
I have one.
Yes,
and
dear.
we've been talking for, I don't know, a year now.
Yes.
Close. And you know that there's an ordinance in play for
Yes.
consideration probably coming up. And I know you mentioned that you're going to be away while that comes up. So that's why you were
Yes.
coming to speak. So we have had conversations about that ordinance.
Yes.
It is my sense that we are in agreement the way that that ordinance is written, that that ordinance represents a decent compromise. Given-
If an ordinance is going to be created, the best thing you could put in there is to have neighbors approval, okay? And that's what I agree to. I don't agree with any ordinance. I consider it should be null and void. It shouldn't have any ordinance. But if you're going to put an ordinance in, you need to respect the people around them that have to live with that. Okay, so I don't understand why the big change. We've had an ordinance, no chickens, since 1998. And I don't know why all of a sudden you want to change this, especially now that we have more and more wildlife that have moved into our communities. So if it has to be done the way you had it written up, I would have to agree with it. I'd have no choice if you voted on it. But that part of it has to stay in there. And another thing is that Mr. Domenico could tell you that I spent one Sunday afternoon about 2 hours just on Madeline Drive. There are 32 houses on my street. And out of 32 houses in an hour's time, I had 22 signatures on a petition against it. And the other people weren't home. I had one person say he didn't care, wouldn't sign it, and the rest of the people weren't home. And if I have to, if you are going to put this ordinance into effect, I will continue in that whole neighborhood, Garden Drive and that whole area, even in your neighborhood, and go around with a petition. Because I don't think it's fair that we should have to suffer with this kind of a thing that's coming around. And the night that fox howled at 4 a.m, not only woke up my household, I have a border collie, and all that collie wants to do is go herd those chickens, okay? He woke up my dog went crazy, woke up the neighbor's dog, that dog went crazy, and they have 7 kids. Woke up the whole household at 4 a.m. That's not fair to anybody. I don't care if you have no kids, it's not fair. The gentleman on the other side is a nurse. He lives by himself, and because he don't want him there either. But it's not fair to him to have him up early in the morning because of this. We've had a peaceful neighborhood. Everybody gets along. Am I correct? They're very helpful with each other. And then all of a sudden this happens. And when she moved in with the doggy daycare, we let it go. Well, the dogs were good, but then it got to the chickens, and then it got worse. It got worse and it got worse, and now it's even more. And you need to see what she's done, but that's beside the point.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So, any other questions?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
Next person, please.
Next person on public comment is Pat Domenico.
My name is Pat Domenico on 30 Madeline Drive, Riverside. There's not much more I could say that Shirley didn't say, so I'm not going to repeat anything that she said. I concur. If she needs more time, you think you need more time for this? I give you my time.
No.
She already used up your time.
I already
sir.
used up my time. Anyways, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, you got to rethink what you're thinking. I think what she said is not much more I can say, but this is a dangerous situation going on with the rats. Oh, it's cute to see a deer when you come out of the woods, but that rat's not cute. Subsequently, we have a problem coming into East Providence. Your neighborhood has already seen the result of the coyotes. They're coming. They're here. But you got to stop the rat business that's going on in our neighborhood. And those aren't rats. They're as big as cats. And that's not good. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Next person, please.
That's it. Well,
Is it for public comment?
no more
Okay.
public comment.
All right. Public comment is now closed. Next item, please.
Next item will be council members. Discussion for a ballot question concerning eminent domain for the November 8th, 2022 election. Topic, procedures and timeline. Discussion only. Councilman Morato and Councilwoman Souza.
Okay, thank you. Let me just get that paper. So this topic is for discussing a couple of things. One, to see now that we're coming up in November's election, there has been discussion on various topics amongst the council for ballot questions. So one of the emphasis for having this was, what does that timeline look like for any question in particular that we were looking to add to the ballot for a vote potentially in that election? And then more specifically for the eminent domain. And that came on a discussion and controversy that the city has had for the last 3 or plus years regarding the Metacomet property. So we all know the history of that property and the timeline that has gone through. And regardless of what side you personally feel on either topic, I think that that whole process really belonged in the hands of the people to make that decision. I don't think something so grave as taking a piece of property by eminent domain from any individual developer or personal person to make such a change is something that any of us or administration should be making solely. I think that is something that should go to the people and have them give us that answer outside of the ones that show up to council meetings or that send emails, because that's, again, just a small percentage of the overall community that are looking to voice their opinion. So some people, whether they're for or against it, might not come to a meeting or might not email or call one of the council members to tell them, you know what, I'm really not into that. I think it's a waste of money. And just like we might not get people who are for it and think that it's a great idea to preserve the green space in the community. So I think it's important that, as a council, we consider what people in our community, their voices. And this goes back to any of the questions that have been put on the ballot. I think it's part of democracy to give people the option to decide what they want in our community. And I get not all decisions go into the hands of the public, but this is a big decision. And I know that we, as a council, put a halt to it at a period, but it doesn't mean that it still doesn't warrant moving forward to have this out in the public and have an open discussion about it and have the people vote and tell us what they truly mean behind a closed curtain in privacy, and then take that information and interpret it as we will based on what they vote. That could be said for any other question. Now, personally, I've been very
Counselor, if I may, I just want to confirm that we're speaking
eminent domain.
generally
Yes,
as the
not-
eminent
not
domain
specific,
as a
right.
whole.
Yes, and to the question for putting it on a ballot. Right. So there might not be things that we're interested in as a council member, but it's to put a question on a ballot. I think it is the duty that we represent the people and allow those questions to move forward, whether we're going to like the outcome or not of the ballot question. So that's why I put that out on the docket. And I know that the solicitor sent a memo, and I'm assuming all council members received a memo. So the timeline with publication and it having to go before the Board of Elections to be codified and to get to the Secretary of State, I believe the council would have to take action via a resolution on any question, not including eminent domain or anything else, that it would have to be by August 5th.
3 months prior to.
The August 10th is the deadline for the actual vote, but just given our notice requirements, functionally, we need to know that anything to go on a ballot, we need to know about by August 5th.
Right. Well, past, like, it's going to it has made all the channels, council and the No.
We just need to know that it's going to be on the next council meeting. That'll be 48 hours from August 5th.
Right.
Then it will be passed by the council, then by the Board of Canvassers, then it gets reviewed by the Secretary of State, then it can go on the ballot. If we are going to put something on the ballot, I might ask for a little bit more time than August 5th. That's a little tight on the solicitor's office. But functionally, August 5th is sufficient for posting.
And that was all I wanted to discuss regarding that. I don't know if Councilman Morado had anything else to add to it.
So everyone knows my position on this topic. We've discussed this we spent a lot of time and hours discussing eminent domain. I still feel firm in my belief that that area would be best suited for our citizens in the manner that we have discussed at length, and making that a passive use area. Councilwoman Souza has also brought up the idea, and I'm sure she's going to talk about it when that topic comes up, with the proposed community center, rec center, of putting something like that on that land and making that a true use for our citizens.
Counselor, with apologies, I believe the agenda item is eminent domain generally.
I'm getting it.
So specific identifications of property require notice to specific parties.
I'm getting there. I'm leading up to it. I'm building the excitement. So with that, I'm not going to keep beating this, but I would like to, and I don't know if it's going to be you, Assistant Solicitor, that would draw this resolution. It would be through resolution, correct? To put this as a ballot question.
It'd be Mike or I. Any ballot question will be drafted by the solicitor's office.
How long would it take to have something drafted? Would it be into the May meeting? Would that be enough time?
We need to know that it needs to be posted by August 5th.
Okay. Are you comfortable with a first meeting in May? Can something be drafted for the first meeting in May for a vote?
Sure.
Okay. So that would be a resolution to put this question to the public as to whether or not the city should seek or continue to seek, we stopped it already, eminent domain of the Metacom property.
Not specifically.
Well, to start that process. Whichever way it needs to be done for that May 5th meeting. I'm sure there'll be email communications with Councilwoman Souza and I as to what that's going to look like for that resolution. Is that fair enough? Thank you.
Any questions or comments from the? I would just like to say one thing, that if anything that I would like to see on the ballot come November, which will be on the ballot, hopefully, and it passes, is the school bond ballot. There's a school bond ballot going to be on November's ballot and approximately for $300 million. We have our schools, Martin Middle Schools more in particular, that's in disarray at this point in time. In 2016, the amount of work that needs to be done in that school was in excess of $35 million. Fast forward to today, we're up to about $60 million worth of work that needs to be done in that school. So I would like to take our priorities, put them in place. Let's look at our students. Let's look at our kids. We got a whole new high school there. There's even a possibility that we might even need another middle school. That's how bad condition that school was in at this point in time. So if there's anything that I would like to see, that will be the first thing that I would like to see. Department of Education came to the school department and told them specifically that if the ballot passes in November, that Department of Education would want to see that Martin Middle School be one of the schools in this state to receive money. And they exactly told them $10 million at least to start them off. That's how bad the school is. The Department of Education came to the school department to tell them this. School department didn't come to the Department of Education. It was just the other way around. It is the second worst school in the state. The second worst school in the state. And as far as I'm concerned, my priorities will be more towards the schools and the kid versus a failed golf course. And we all know that a golf course that has failed once before, and if it goes into the city's hands, if we have professionals, am I getting off course? Okay. So if anything, I would like to see at this point in time is that we have a bond for the school department, particularly for Martin Middle School. And again, it's in excess of $60 million. Call the school department. If nobody wants to believe me at this point in time. Talk with the school department, talk about the issues they have and the problems that they have in Martin Middle School. It is the second worst school in the state. Any other further discussions?
I agree,
If not-
Councilman Brito, that Martin, I've been hearing that it is a huge issue. So, okay, never mind, disregard. Thank you.
There's no other further discussion at this point in time. Councilwoman Souza, would it?
Yeah,
Have anything
I
to
was
add?
done with my,
Okay. All right, with
Okay.
that being said, we'll move
Thank
on to
you.
the next item. Thank you.
The next item will be continued business for discussion and public comment. Review of first passage ordinance on redistricting, an ordinance and amendment of chapter 2 of the revised ordinances of the city of East Providence, Rhode Island, 1998, as amended, entitled Administration. The summary is the purpose of this ordinance is to redraw the ward boundaries to comply with the results of the 2020 census.
Mr. President. I have the understanding that there was an error in the Providence Journal posted the incorrect information. We can have the second, we can have a public hearing on this matter today. I believe we are required to have a secondary posting at some time in the future. I don't know if we have a set time for that just yet.
That meeting will be held April 7th here
Yeah.
at 8 a.m.
So if anyone wishes to address that now, they're absolutely able to, and they do not need to reappear at 8 a.m. They can just have full comment now, and that will be all a portion of the record when it's voted on to correct for the journal's posting error.
So it is posted for discussion and public comment at this point in time. So if anybody has any questions, feel free regarding the redistricting. Feel free to approach the podium and address your comments or concerns. Again, anyone have any questions or concerns regarding the redistricting? We had 2 workshops on this. This will be for public comment today, and we will have another one April 7th, which is Thursday at 8 a.m. to finalize it. Please approach the podium. If not,
Mr. President, can we clarify the error that we're talking about? It was made by the Providence Journal, somehow misprint or something, was not made by.
Was not made by
Us.
anyone in the city. The ad was emailed in, approved by myself and Solicitor Marcello. We went looking for the ad. It was not in the paper. They booked it under the wrong city, and she stated she was very sorry for the error.
And obviously they are not charging us.
Well, for this ad, the correct ad, yes,
Well,
not the one
okay.
that they did booked under the wrong town. So it got put in the paper, everything is good, and we will be all set for.
And hence, because of deadlines, we have to,
Yes,
that's the only reason it's
yes.
Thursday morning at
Exactly.
8
So-
o'clock.
Councilman, there was an email that reflect that as well.
Yeah, I
The
saw it.
apologies from the Providence
Mhm.
Journal, so just want to make sure you got a copy of.
Yeah, I was aware. I wanted to make the public know what was going on here. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Public comment, as I indicated, is now closed, and we'll move on to the next item, please.
Next item will be new business, mayor communications. The first is the appointment requiring council confirmation. For Nicholas Oliver, it's a reappointment to the East Providence Canvassing Board. The term is March 2nd, 2022 to March 1st, 2028. Napoleon Gonzalez.
Mr. Gonzalez?
Good evening, Council. As the city clerk mentioned, it is a reappointment from Mr. Nicholas Oliver. The appointment is nominated by the mayor and subject to approval by the city council. If approved by the council, Mr. Oliver's appointment will be effective immediately.
Mr. President, I move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor to approve by Councilman Cahoon, seconded by Councilman Morado. Deputy Clerk, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, sir. Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morato.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council President Brito.
Aye. Next item, please.
The next item is going to be, it's an appointment for Steven Santos to the East Providence Canvassing Board. It's going to be withdrawn. He withdrew his application.
The withdrawal is accepted and acknowledged.
The next candidate to be appointed or voted on to be appointed is a Democratic nominee, Virginia DeFreitas to the East Providence Canvassing Board. Mrs. DeFreitas will be taking appointment number 5, an alternate replacing a vacant seat. The appointment is a 6-year term. The appointment is nominated by the mayor and subject to council approval. Also to add a little bit about her background, she worked for 31 years in the East Providence Police Department as a fire and police dispatcher, former member of the Cape Verdean Progressive Center. She also wants to remain an active part of her community.
Motion to approve.
Second. You got it.
Motion, it was seconded. Deputy Clerk, we'll start off with a roll call.
Yes, sir. Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morato.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council President Brito.
Aye. That concludes the mayor's communications, sir?
Mhm.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
You have one more though.
Next item. please.
Next item are items for discussion, the sidewalk repair update, DPW Director Daniel Borges. He will also be speaking on the LED streetlight conversion update.
Good evening, council. Just wanted to give everyone a brief update on the sidewalk project. The engineering office is working to finalize the scope of work for that project, and we should have that project awarded and hopefully work beginning by the end of the month, end of this month. The work will focus mainly on Pawtucket Avenue from the Senior Center to Vets Parkway, along with other sidewalks throughout the city, mainly focusing around schools, so access to schools. So that's the update I have. If you have any questions, I mean, I can feel free to answer them.
I do, Director Borges. Thank you for that. 2 things. One, regarding Pawtucket Ave, I know that's been something that's been discussed for many years because of how awful it is from one end of the city to the other. Is there a way that we can invoice the state after we've done it? It might not go anywhere, but it is technically their property. And so even though we're doing the repairs because we value our community and the safety of the pedestrians traveling.
Yeah, unfortunately, the sidewalks on state roads are the responsibility of the city.
Okay.
We've been lobbying to try to change that, obviously. I've been before a few, there've been a few times at the State House that they've been trying to lobby for that. So we've been doing our best to try to be in favor of that. We ultimately feel as if the state should be responsible for maintaining the sidewalks on a state right of way. Unfortunately, they're at a point where we can't wait any longer. I mean, they're in terrible shape. So
Yeah, and I would never want to delay that. It just,
Yeah.
once it's done, let's send it over to them.
I would love to.
This is what it cost us
Yep.
and our taxpayers.
Right.
The second thing I just wanted to mention, and I don't know if you were planning on doing this anyway, but can we get a list of those streets that in the school areas that are on the list? Only because I was just at a recent tree commission meeting and there's going to be work for planting trees. And if the sidewalks are going to be demolished or redone, it'd be a perfect time if we've indicated those areas as being tree planted areas that they would work together with your department. So that
Yeah.
once it's been dug up, then we could go ahead and make a well and place a
Sure.
tree in that
Yeah,
area.
once we finalize that list, we'll be happy to share that before it goes out to bid.
I appreciate that.
Yep.
Thank you.
Quick question, and you probably already thought of this, and I'm sorry if you have, but so to that end, as we're digging up the sidewalks and considering appropriate places for planting trees, we are marking sewer lines and things like that, right? So we don't have tree roots interfering with.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, any excavation requires a dig safe permit or a dig safe to be pulled. So I mean, we would go out and mark those areas that were called in properly.
Okay.
Yeah, it would be good to know, I mean, where those trees would
Right,
potentially
that's-
be planted,
Right.
because obviously we would want, to Councilman Cahoon's point, I mean, we would want to avoid sewer lines
Right,
and
so
other
that's why,
utilities.
yeah, working together. So once,
Yep.
same thing with streets, if they're gonna be digging, up, any road work, whether it's sidewalk or the street. If we know what the list is, then that can be communicated. And Tony, Mr. Vieira didn't attend that meeting. We're hoping that he's coming to this meeting, that's upcoming, so that we can communicate that with him. So
Yeah, I
he'll
mean,
know.
in any locations, feel free to send those my way as well. If you have locations that you intend on planting trees, it'd
Sure.
be good to be on the same page with that.
Right, and so just for the council's knowledge and the public, we know that a lot of our sidewalks have these roots and have ruined the sidewalks because they were the inappropriate tree to be planting on that sidewalk or in that area. So any tree that gets planted moving forward, per the commission, will be appropriate native trees that will serve the purpose for our tree city to maintain its statue.
And I mean, to add to that, we're dealing with a similar situation with National Grid. We have areas in the city where large trees have now grown around major distribution lines where we have to cut these trees down or potentially lose power to thousands of services. So we're working with National Grid to make sure if we do plant trees under utilities, that they're trees that they recommend, that are obviously native to this
Right, they're
this area,
appropriate.
growing zone.
Thank you.
Is Bullock's Point, the sidewalks on the radar this time, or?
For this project, no. But I mean, if there are bad areas, we've done spot repair. The highway department does spot repairs in areas that.
There are some really bad areas, especially on I believe the west side, on your side, Nate. There's some areas that are, we're gonna be dealing with people tripping down the road and dealing with those claims, so.
Yeah, any of
That could be
those, I mean,
addressed.
pass along to myself, to my office. We'd be happy to.
I'll be happy to take a walk with you as I did last year, counting spots for empty tree spots. I'd be happy. Just tell me when and
There's
I'll walk.
plenty
with
of
you.
them.
Councilman Morado, I know we kind of wrestled back and forth on this with, it's in the 5-year plan for the state. They're going to do the state roads. The sidewalks are going to get done. 5-year plan gets kicked again, right? We're 5 years out right now. And we've been talking about it for what, 10 years?
Yeah, I think they just recently pushed the Pawtucket Avenue project again.
So to the extent that, you would want to identify funds in the capital budget for next year, I'm behind that too,
So there are some really bad areas on that side. I'm looking at wheelchairs and stuff like that.
Right.
I mean, it doesn't have, you don't have to do the whole sidewalk as you are doing with Pawtucket Avenue for now, but maybe address some of those areas, temporarily or something.
Sure. So if no other further questions, I can move on to the streetlight conversion. So the long awaited streetlight conversion that we talked about months ago, happening very soon. And like everything else, supply chain has become an issue. So tentatively, we plan on starting on Monday. The contractor's finally gotten enough equipment and supplies to be able to stay in the city for a long period of time without having to leave and come back. So we're working to get them here starting Monday of next week. Again, they'll be focusing on state roadways so that we can offload those lights to the state and they can start paying the electric bill on those. As you may have noticed throughout the city, they have actually been converting some of the street lights as they receive calls for outed lights. So they do have a small stock that they were able to begin converting a few. So hopefully we'll start seeing that happening in larger quantities. I'm sorry?
They have?
They have. So if
So we'll talk after the meeting then.
Okay.
You know where I'm going, right?
Possibly.
We'll talk after the meeting.
Okay. So no further questions?
One question, Dan, as we all know, people have been clamoring for these lights for years. Under the heading of, you can't please everybody all the time. I hear and see a couple of comments from people saying, I don't want that bright light in my window. We want lights or we don't. However, they can be dimmed, right?
They can be dimmed, but more importantly, they can be aimed away from houses or onto the roadway, which is ultimately what we intend on doing. If we do obviously run into any issues with residents who have complaints, we can certainly field
So I
those
wanted
and
to-
address them as they come.
Okay, I want to make that known. If there is a resident, it's not a big deal to, somehow they can contact any of us or City Hall or your office and,
We have the Q alert system online. We'd be happy
Yep.
to put those through the Q alert. I mean, if it becomes an issue. I don't intend on it becoming an issue. I think that when they're installed, they'll make sure to have those pointed towards the roadway, but obviously things always come up, so.
and I wouldn't worry about it. I would get as many installed as soon as possible and then we'll shake it free as it goes on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is the February capital expenses and finances. Finance Director Malcolm Moore.
I'm sorry, unfortunately, Director Moore is not available tonight.
What point?
Next would be Bold Point Park Agreement by Planning Director William Fazioli.
Good evening, Council. This is just a continuation or renewal of an existing agreement with the Rhode Island Live Nation, the folks who put on the concert series there. This will renew it for the 2022 season, which will start May 1st, and they'll have the agreement will be for the season from May 1st, October 31st. The fees being paid to the city will remain the same, $1.20 per paid ticket. And those fees go to the Park and Recreation Department to, eventually take care of the park. So it's really just a continuation of the same enterprise. They've been booking bands every week and they've been making announcements. So I think they're gonna have a full season this year.
Okay.
So President, can we tie this into the resolution?
I was just going to ask.
Save some time,
Yes, please.
if it's okay with the council. I'm glad to sponsor this resolution in my continued effort to support the long overdue attention given our waterfront. And it's a lengthy resolution in substance, so I won't read that all, but I want to just mention some of the highlights. Bill, you just mentioned some, so I won't repeat them, but the current lease expires this June 15th. And like most venues under the pandemic, Live Nation slowly coming back. So we're starting to see activity. The city will continue to own the total property. Live Nation under this lease will have exclusive use, strictly though, just from May through October. And this will go through June 15th of 2023. Live Nation will provide all security, cleanup, supervision, et cetera, at their expense. And as the lease spells out, this includes any extra police or fire services that may be needed. As you mentioned, Bill, the city will receive $1 for every private ticket sold and $1.20 for every general public ticket sold. We currently have $53,635 in the account, and it's strictly for parks and recreation in the city. So we have that little cushion to work with going forward, and we'll build that up quite a bit as events happen. April 1st, Live Nation puts $15,000 in an escrow account, which if there are any disagreements about money owed the city, either from these tickets or other problems, we automatically can draw money down from that escrow account until we solve the question. And people might ask, well, how do you know how many tickets they sold? And the lease spells out that through the ticket agents and those third-party sellers that we will receive receipts. So and I think they've been pretty good about it to date. The fact that there hasn't been much recently and we're up to $53,000 sitting there for Parks and Recreation is a good thing. They're limited to up to 20 events a season. The events have to start no earlier than 6 p.m. and end by 10 p.m. If they don't, there is a $1,000 fine if they go beyond 10 p.m. Other than if there's a problem with weather or there can be some extenuating circumstances. Live Nation is also held to notify the city of all of their scheduled events. What is not in the lease, and I would just as a gentleman's agreement, like to see the city then notify Providence City Hall because of the programs they have at India Point. Last year, the last time we had events, there was some concern with India Point concerts, our concerts, and the noise. And I know there's other noise problems coming from Providence, but India Point supporters were mentioning, well, you guys have concerts too, and we're hearing the noise, and sometimes when they're competing. So hopefully we will contact somebody in Providence that could let the India Point Park people know about it.
Councilman, real quick, just so you understand, there's an upcoming meeting at the end of this month. I'll fill you in on the details with respect to the meeting with Providence regarding that.
Great. And that's about those are the highlights. Other than to say that the city throughout the concerts will retain full access to the public boat ramp and the public park there, even during a concert. If someone is coming in on a boat, they're not going to be blocked. So as I went through this lease, those were the highlights. And the actual cover of the resolution states that whereas the current lease agreement between the city of East Providence and Live Nation Worldwide will expire June 15th, 2022. Whereas Live Nation Worldwide would like to continue to use the property located at Bull Point Park along Waterfront Drive, map, block, and parcel identified for the presentation of music performances, festivals, and other entertainment or private events. Therefore, be it resolved that the City Council of the City of East Providence hereby authorizes the mayor of the City of East Providence to execute the lease agreement between the City of East Providence and Live Nation Worldwide, Inc., attached hereto as Exhibit A, and the long exhibit was attached, and I gave some highlighted bullets of that. If there is some public discussion of this,
Nope.
if not, I would make that a motion.
I'll second that motion.
May I ask just one question real quick? Bill, do you, can you speak to how insurance works for, events and during that time?
It is spelled out. Live Nation is required to provide a proof of insurance up to $5 million per event. And also we have our, the trust is also cross-insure on what happens there as well. So the lease contains the responsibility of the leasee to have insurance in place for each event.
Thank you.
Are we listed as a policy holder on that as well?
I'd have to defer to the finance officer or the.
And I only asked that, in an event that is canceled, that we will be notified that it is canceled.
I believe we're listed as an added insured. That's our kind of our standard checklist.
At least we are. Yeah, I knew the answer to that question, but I just wanted it in public. So,
Bill, could you push for a little more R&B this season?
Well, they did announce just a blues band coming in August.
I'm going to be there.
Kenny Wayne Shepherd and Buddy Guy will be playing.
Great.
So with the Grammy awarding guitarist who just won a Martin Blues Award this summer, so it should be good. But just the mayor also wanted me to mention that we did finally receive CRMC approval to make some improvements to the park, including the parking lot, which is legendary.
Roller
so
coaster.
we're going to be putting some, and Dan Board is maybe at a future meeting can tell you that's meant to be graded and put in some new material to prevent those big dips.
I'm glad you mentioned that. That's what I forgot to mention in my attempt to rush here. I'd like at some point to see us get a little more permanency there. I mean, in the off season, it's a barren look and you can't visualize it. Maybe someday we can have a permanent setup.
Yeah, I think once the venue moves to the property behind it, the Unical site, that'll give the city to invest a lot more money to make it a more attractive setting.
Yeah, I think Councilman, I don't know if you recall, but I did provide the council some months back during the capital improvement time with a plan on how to improve that area with the paving of it, changing the configuration of the parking for the trailers with their trucks or boats, and then having public access and walkways and such. So there is a vision for that area. It's just a matter of when I think Live Nation moves to their new location. Not to say that if we didn't do it in that way, that it wouldn't still help them or look nicer for them and those that patron that the events in the summertime. But there is a vision for that area that should be getting.
Yeah, so there'll be some
taken care
improvements
of.
made prior to this season, which I think will improve
Yeah.
the grading.
Well, that grading needs to be done frequently. It's not that's like a every couple of week ordeal, especially when it rains, because it washes it right out. So it's a never ending issue, unfortunately. But I think with Live Nation, they've been doing a good job during their tenure with the concerts of maintaining those roadway as best they can for safety, because they don't want legal issues either. Thank you. So I second that.
Okay, Deputy Clerk, may we have a roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morato.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council President Brito.
Aye, next item, please.
Next item.
So if I may, Council President, I have some ordinances for introduction on the agenda, and I do have a speaker, Madeline Marlowe, from the East Providence Preventive Coalition here to speak. So I don't want, and I believe she has some guests with her, so I don't want to keep them till the wee hours of night. It is a school night. If we could move that
Can
up.
we just finish this one item that's remaining on here?
Well, we have
Greek-
multiple resolutions.
The Greek
no.
flags?
Under
Oh, okay.
items for discussion.
It's just one
Oh,
more.
the
that
flag
can
raising,
conclude
I
the,
apologize.
Items for discussion.
Sure.
I'll try to be quick. It's a mayoral proclamation of the 201st anniversary of the Greek Independence Day, March 25th, 1821, the feast of the day of the Annunciation. The Greek nation reclaimed its ancient heritage as the cradle of democracy and conquered by the Ottoman Turks in the 15th century. Greek waged a successful war of independence and reinstituted a democratic form of government. And whereas the people of the United States generously offered humanitarian assistance to the Greek people during their struggle for independence, and whereas hundreds of thousands of civilians were killed in Greece during World War II, and whereas Greece is one of the only 3 nations in the world beyond the former British Empire that has been allied with the United States in every major international conflict over the last 101 years, and whereas Greece, located in a region where Christianity meets Islam and Judaism, maintains excellent relations with Israel and Muslim nations and demonstrates religious tolerance, and whereas Greece and the United States are at the forefront of the effort for freedom, democracy, peace, stability, and human rights, and whereas in East Providence, the residents of Greek heritage are as instrumental addition to the city as our neighbors, friends, and business owners, and have proven to be an integral part of the community. The Honorable Mayor Roberto De Silva, on behalf of the city of East Providence, proclaim Friday, March 25th, 2022, as the 201st anniversary of Greek Independence Day in the city of East Providence. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, that concludes mayor communications or items for discussions. Councilwoman, you want to move your item up?
Yes, if it's pleases the council unanimously to do so.
Any discussions? Good to go. No.
All right, if we can get those couple of pictures up, maybe one on each monitor if that's possible, or side by side. So before the council tonight are various ordinances regarding tobacco regulation and amendments to our current tobacco ordinance. There's 4 currently on. I would say that 2 are really to speak to what the General Assembly and to conform to what their current law is, and that's to bring the smoking age from currently in East Providence at 18 to purchase tobacco products, I should say, to the state law, which is the age of 21. That this has come up for a number of reasons in our community, and it kind of falls in line with the way the rest of the state is operating. And I think that it's best that for the health of our community that we also adopt the same provisions. This also does speak to electronic or vaping paraphernalia that is not still a tobacco product, though it's in a different form of tobacco. So smoking cigarettes is not as common amongst the new generation. It's not favorable, but the liquid form is, and the liquid form still does present quite a deal of health problems in the present and safety issues with explosives. Those little pods and stuff tend to, be highly flammable and have caused serious injuries to persons that have it on them. So this has been brought up for the council, and we can take it, so let's say either one by one when we discuss it. And then I have up on our screen for the audience and viewers at home to see really some statistics that speaks to the usage in our state as a whole. So if we want to go back to that first slide, we can shrink it down a little bit. And it so it tells us about the middle school use, high school use, and then where as a city of East Providence, where we lie. And so those numbers, kind of small for the viewers back there, but it is pretty significant. It does break down all substances in this survey, and I'll ask Madeline if she could come up to speak in more detail. She is part of our East Providence Prevention Coalition, who I've been working with, and she's worked very diligently in the community to address a lot of these issues in our community. So it goes across all substances, but tonight we're speaking more specifically, obviously, to tobacco products.
Yes, this actually came about, I wasn't even aware that ordinance did not address electronic nicotine delivery devices or vapes, or was not at the age of 21 until we conducted compliance checks with the East Providence Police Department.
Excuse me, is your mic on?
Is it?
Is it green?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh,
Can you
sorry.
Just talk closer.
Sure.
That's all.
We conducted compliance checks, which is where we send a youth decoy in to purchase tobacco products and vaping devices, and to see if if retailers are in compliance with making sure that they're IDing their customers. And they, unfortunately, 3 out of 16 retailers that we surveyed that night did sell to our 14-year-old decoy. So it's not even, they're selling to minors that are not even close to the age of 21. There's several retailers that are selling to 11 and 12-year-olds knowingly. And there's nothing that we can really do to enforce any kind of fines or penalties for vaping devices because it's not in the ordinance. So that is a concern. Some of the data here for East Providence is we have 15.9% of our students are past 30-day users of ENS devices, which are vapes. 17.2% of those that purchase them have our 30-day past users are actually purchasing them from the store here in East Providence. 14.2% of those are getting without an ID at all, and then 3% are using a fake ID. Unfortunately, we have quite a few retailers that are very well known within the community and our youth that you can go in and purchase a vape device without any identification whatsoever. And they're purchasing flavored ones as well, which are banned by the Department of Health. So we need these ordinances to be able to enforce, state statute and Department of Health guidelines.
Well, let me ask you, does state statute supersede?
I'm not sure, but when we did this compliance checks, the police department and the prosecutors, they talked to the district court and municipal court, and no one's prosecuted a case of that nature at the state level.
And I only ask that because serving alcohol, we know that there were fronts set up where, if an establishment was selling alcohol to a minor, their license were possibly revoked or placed on hold. And then there was some kind of negotiation with the legal department. I shouldn't use the word negotiation, but maybe you can elaborate on that more. And does the same pertain to any type of form of cigarettes, whether it's electronic, vape, otherwise?
Sure. So there's a couple of layers, because in each instance, we're talking about someone that it received a license from the city of East Providence. So any violation of city code or state code, we can enforce it relative to their license, as well as the individual that actually did the sale. The individual that actually did the sale, that's commonly a district court prosecution. I can't speak to exactly how it functions relative to tobacco. I have not prosecuted tobacco in district court. Liquor license violations I'm much more familiar with, but in either case, because it's related to a business license, this council in its capacity as the licensing board can actually remove someone's business license, suspend it, or take some sort of action against them if they are selling to underage.
Okay.
My understanding is that the city of East Providence does have local licenses for alcohol retailers, but they do not for tobacco retailers. So that's also, I think, for as proposed ordinance, so that there'll be, y'all could have more local control, and you could try those cases here. Like current ordinance is 18 and it only has like cigarette tobacco products on it. So they would still get a citation for that kind of violation, and they would come before you as municipal court, or they would pay the fine. Our issue now is that it's not 21 and it does not have any language in it for electronic nicotine delivery systems for vapes. So we can't do anything. I mean, we could take them to state, and that's a long process of investigation and things of that nature.
So one of the things in one of the ordinances, the one that actually speaks to the licensing and businessing regulations, one of the, I think, added benefits to that one is that when we address any violations, any funds that are received through violations was actually go back into the preventive coalition and education. Because the key is we're not trying to harm any businesses at all. We want them to recognize what the laws are, to be good business owners and community partners, and just follow that. And so maybe some of that is education, and that's what this would assist with, is making sure that people are well educated and that they're kept accountable by having this in place, so that they don't continuously sell to minors, especially those that are in the middle school age. And this really came about too because, as we know and have heard, and especially I know Councilman Cahoon being on the school committee previously, this is happening in the schools, especially now with the flavored. It is very difficult to indicate where students are smoking because it smells like air freshener or cologne or gum. So it's more desirable and it lures, the marketing is ingenious, Philip Morris, they do great things. When one thing's not working well, you come up with another one. But it is a public safety issue, and coming from a medical background, the earlier you start these bad habits, the worse your life outcome is going to be. Smoking is the #1 cause for dozens of diseases that an adult will acquire in their life once they hit middle age because of that choice of lifestyle. So why not try to help those that are under 21, restrict that. Once you're after 21, you're a grown adult, you can make those poor choices if that's what you choose. But if we can try to prevent kids, school age kids, from being addicted to these things early on, or having the exposure to them or the availability, then I think we're doing our community overall justice in the healthcare aspect of it.
I agree. One of our greatest tools in prevention is restricting access to use. Basically, delaying onset is one of our best tools to prevent substance misuse or any kind of disorders, use disorders. So,
At the pleasure of the council. Any questions?
I can't speak for the rest of the council, but I actually smoked for 10 years. That's not to smoke. I started when I was a teenager. The worst habit I could have ever gotten myself into. And if I wasn't able to buy cigarettes at 18, I would have been very happy about that. I thought I was cool rolling the pack of sitting on my t-shirt, but it's a horrible habit, and anything that could help deter, teenagers from picking up that habit, I'm in favor of it.
Okay.
So if that's the pleasure of the council, we can take this one by one unless anybody has anything that they'd like to add or speak on.
No, would you like to form it into a motion?
Sure. So I move to approve under D, number 1, ordinance and amendment of chapter 13 of the revised ordinance of the city of East Providence, Rhode Island, 1998, as amended, entitled Public Places, amending section 13-4A entitled Smoking in Public Places. So this would include now the prohibiting use of electronic nicotine devices or the use of combustible cannabis in public spaces. So moved as read.
Motion's on the floor. We have a second. Deputy Clerk, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, sir. Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morato.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council President Brito.
Aye.
Second ordinance labeled number 2, an ordinance and amendment of chapter 9 of the revised ordinance of the city of East Providence, Rhode Island, 1998, as amended, entitled Miscellaneous Offenses, amending section 19-13 entitled Sales of Cigarettes by Vending Machine Prohibited. This would conform to state law prohibiting sales of tobacco products from vending machines.
Councilwoman, are there still vending machines?
Can I ask?
Well,
I can't remember the last time I seen one.
I don't know if they're operating, but in case anybody decides to, they won't be allowed to. So let's put the horse before the cart.
Mhm.
So moved as read.
We have a second. Deputy Clerk?
Yes, sir. Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morato.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council President Brito.
Amending section 9-15 entitled Purchase, Sale, or Delivery of Tobacco Products to a Person under 18 Prohibited. Notice of less to be posted. This will change the age of purchasing tobacco product in the form of cigarettes, cigars, pipe tobacco, chewing tobacco, snuff, sniff, electric cigarettes, or any other form of electric nicotine devices to anyone under the age of 21 in this and setting penalties and violations therefore. As read, I move for approval.
Okay, do we have a motion on that motion? Second on that motion?
Second.
Deputy Clerk, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, sir. Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morato.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council President Brito.
Aye. Next ordinance, please.
And last and final ordinance under this section, number 4, an ordinance and amendment of chapter 8 of the revised ordinance of the city of East Providence, Rhode Island, 1998, as amended, entitled Licenses and Business Regulation. This establishes and requires all state licensed tobacco retailers in the city of East Providence to also obtain a city-issued annual tobacco license with other posted notifications required and penalties for violations. I move as read.
So to that point, how do we get the word out? Right? Because we've got tons of vendors right now that would fall into that.
So in this ordinance, there is it is not upon passage. There is going to be about a 6-month, I believe, window for education and notification so that all vendors are aware. And then I believe it's December, it's the licensing renewal.
November 1st, we renew.
Yeah, so when all other licenses are renewed, that would be when this would take effect.
So read that, but I'm more thinking about like the logistics of the actual program, right? Because I mean, we want them to comply. We don't want them to just get slammed.
Right.
Like, how are we gonna take them through that process?
The East Providence Prevention Coalition would certainly educate them to let them know that they have to apply for a license at this point in time. I'm sure the city would also back us up on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we're putting the ordinance in place, I mean, I
Right.
think it's primarily a city responsibility to
Right.
get the word out, right? However, okay,
Yeah, so we'll definitely get notification out. And I know in the ordinance, it does speak to assisting the Prevention Coalition, assisting with getting the signage so it can be placed where it's to conform with all the state laws and with the city ordinance. So it'll be a collaborative effort between the two, myself and, the city as a whole and the coalition. Yeah.
got it.
For sure. And that's why we gave it some time so that we would be able to implement it with reasonable time.
Did you make a motion?
I did.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Roll call vote, please.
Yes, sir. Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morato.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council President Brito.
Aye, thank you.
Thank you very
guys
much.
So much
Have
for
a
your
good night.
consideration.
Thank you.
And Councilwoman Souza
Moving right along to,
placed those in the paper already, so they'll be on for second passage at the next meeting.
Okay,
So you'll be
wonderful.
all set.
Thank you.
moving right along to reports of other city officials, page 5, those of you following us.
Reports of other city officials. It'll be the report of the Assistant City Solicitor, the Claims Committee. report.
There we go.
There were 7 votes, all were unanimous.
Thank you.
The next
Next item,
The
please.
next item will be resolutions for discussion and possible vote. Resolution establishing the City of East Providence Council Dog Park Advisory Committee. Council President Brito.
Thank you. It's a resolution establishing the East Providence City Council Dog Park Advisory Committee. The resolution reads as the city council passed an ordinance on June 2nd, 2020, authorizing the Director of Public Works to designate certain parks within the city as dog parks. And whereas pursuant to that authority, the Director of Public Works has designated Hunts Mill Dog Park and Kent Park as such facilities. Whereas the community and animal advocates have expressed an interest in advising the city council on dog parks improvement, rules, regulations, and other issues related to the parks, care, maintenance, and supervision. And whereas the city council desires a formal appoint an advisory committee to the interest of the city of East Providence citizens as assist the city council in making its dog parks safe, user-friendly, and enjoyable for all people and their pets. And now therefore be it resolved that the East Providence City Council therefore declares and establishes the East Providence Dog Park Advisory Committee. The advisory committee will consist of 7 members appointed by the city council. And their responsibilities would be one of 5, advise the city council related to care, use, maintenance of city established dog parks. Advise the city council on public and private grant opportunities related to funding and improvement to the city-owned dog parks. Recommend the passage of ordinances and or rules and regulations related to dog park use, hours, operation, and similar measures. Recommend the location and or expansion of future dog parks within the city of East Providence. And finally, the last one, advise the committee shall comply with all applicable provisions of the Rhode Island Open Meeting Act. So essentially, what we have here is no different than what we've had in any other board or commission. However, because there is a dog park, an existing dog park in Huntsville, we have a dog park for large dogs. We have one for small dogs, and those two abut one another. They are separate for the small dogs and for the big dogs. So again, it's no different than any other board or commission. This board, in this case, will be an advisory to the council and give us recommendations. And therefore, I leave it up to the council at this point in time for either discussion or for their input.
Mr. President, I move to approve.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. If nobody has any discussion, we do have a motion by Councilman Cahoon. Would anyone like to second that motion?
Council President, I just had one question. Will the advisory committee, if I heard that correctly, they will be giving us feedback on other locations that would be good dog park locations?
In an event that, yes, in an event that other parts of the city, they will be making some recommendations. Doesn't only have to be the advisory committee that
Okay.
recommends that or suggests that, and it could be a council person, it could be a neighbor.
I'm just trying to remember what the process was before. Was it a resolution that was sent to the administration or funds? I can't remember. I don't recall.
Well,
the
there was a capital improvement that went towards the dog park to establish the dog park in Huntsville.
Right,
Um,
but Kent Farm,
that's
Heights.
no,
okay, right.
yeah, that's no.
So that, is it just by way of resolution then? It can be done that way? I'm just saying for future
For
parks,
establishing.
for establishing,
Yeah.
correct? Okay.
Oh, yeah. Mhm.
Okay.
So if a council person wants to establish one in their particular ward, I think they should have the right to designate a specific area
Mhm.
and have one.
Okay.
This is more primarily for an advisory committee
a
to
committee.
advise the council committee.
Okay.
But the advisory committee will be citywide.
Yes, Oh, yeah.
And the members are picked by,
city council.
I
So we-
second.
We have a motion by Councilman Cahoon, seconded by Councilman Morado. Deputy Clerk, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, sir. Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morado.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council President Brito.
Aye, thank you. Next item, please.
Next item is a resolution requesting the General Assembly to authorize act related to borrowing of up to $10 million for a multi-purpose community recreation complex. The sponsor is Councilwoman Souza.
So I'm going to read off the resolution, and this came after that council meeting that we had where we took back that $5 million bond for the ongoing 20-year plus recreation center that the voters had approved multiple times. And because there were stipulations on that regarding the location of where that could be built, it wasn't going to come to fruition. So coming off of that and consistently hearing the community's request to want to have and need to have some type of community rec center where all the community can use day, evening, weekends. It got me thinking about trying to start that wheel in motion and see where it took us. So I'll read this and then I can open up to the council for discussion. So whereas in 2002, the voters of the city of East Providence approved a bond issued for design and conversion of Martin Middle School site for a multipurpose community recreation complex by a vote of 53% to 46%. And whereas the complex was never built and the Martin Middle School continues to operate as an educational facility in the city of East Providence School Department. And whereas the will of the voters was never carried out and for more than 20 years has passed and since the approval of the bond issued in 2002, whereas a need for this multi-purpose community recreation complex is needed for the benefit of the community of East Providence. Now here, therefore, let it be resolved that the city of East Providence City Council formally requests that the General Assembly take any and all necessary actions to pass a specific bond issued not to exceed $10 million for design, purchase, and build of a multi-purpose community recreation center within the city of East Providence, subject to approval of the voters of the bond on the 2022 November general election. And then it signifies that the city clerk or deputy clerk would direct the certified letter copy to all members of the General Assembly, including the Speaker of the House and the President of the State Senate. So I'll open up the floor to the council that has any discussion in regards to this. I know that there was a community meeting online that the administration spoke about ideas for a community center. That was the first time that I saw that laid out after having discussions about it. So I'm well aware of what the intention is and the location. I don't know how we mix these two. I would imagine it's a combination of both. And I know that in that video, there was talks of using opera money and such. So I think it's up to the people. Again, put it in their hands. Do they want this? Have them be more involved in the process of what it is that they want in their community rec center. I know we have multiple people or organizations who want indoor sports, right? So basketball courts, having access to basketball courts for the weekends or during the weeknight or during the weekday, having track fields so that you can walk around for exercise. The community has wanted a pool for a very long time since we lost it at the high school. There's multiple health benefits to having a pool, especially for our elderly population who doing exercise is not very easy on the body or the joints on any mechanical machine. So something as simple as you and I walking a track might not be cumbersome, but for an elderly person who has various types of arthritises, it does hurt and it is uncomfortable, but doing water sports and water exercises is beneficial. And so, that's something, these are all little things that I think the community should be involved in having this conversation and pulling from to make these decisions if we're going to be spending or building something like this for the community.
Council President, if I may. That's to my understanding, this has already been voted on twice, right?
Correct.
So I know as you know, the mayor and the administration has already undertaken the effort to look at building a community center. And we've taken some public input from the public. There's been a couple of meetings, and I know that we're planning a couple more meetings on it. My only fear with a resolution and going to a bond for it is that you might put in jeopardy us getting funds from ARPA. And I know that the mayor's been in discussions, both with the federal delegation and also the governor's office, and they're very excited about the idea. And they're beginning to look at the funding for it. So if you put out a bond, it may jeopardize our efforts to get money for free rather than borrowing money, putting more of a burden on the citizens of East Providence. That's all.
I think, do we have an opportunity to hear from, I'd very much like to hear from Malcolm about so we reset, right? That $5 million authorization, which wasn't going anywhere. We pulled that out because that was doing nothing but limiting our ability to bond, right? To do things like this or other things like Council President was talking about before. Can we get an opportunity to really talk through those things that are bonded right now and talk through the economic impact of this? I'd be interested in this discussion.
Yeah.
For sure. I don't know that I'd be ready to vote on it tonight. I'd like to ask some questions.
Yeah, and so this is on here as a vessel of communication, right?
Okay.
So nothing gets on a docket that doesn't get discussed. I wasn't expecting anybody to vote on it. It does have to go through its series of things, just because, like, with any resolution, with any bond, just because we say we want it and we approve it, doesn't mean that it doesn't die up at the General Assembly or get, tabled or go to a committee that is going to check for further studies. So I am always open for an open dialect and communication, being transparent about what it is that I think and I've heard from the community, and having that ongoing conversation.
I agree that, certainly we want to have a dialogue and couldn't possibly vote tonight, and you're not asking us to. I understand. A bond, I want to hear from the finance department. I want to hear, they did talk about this earlier, is a bond feasible on the heels of the big high school bond? And also, I don't want to confuse the public. Martin Middle School is being, not by you, Councilman, but it was being thrown into this as a smokescreen. There were two votes. One, the initial vote, the public overwhelmingly said, we want a rec center. State didn't stop it. Local officials stopped it, who are now no longer here, but at the city manager's level, at certain council members' level, they never codified what the voters approved. Second time around, and there was a public committee of residents that wanted this rec center, community rec center. So that same council at the time said, okay, we'll go to bond again, but they threw in, well, you can get it if you knock down Martin Middle School.
Like
well,
a
curveball. And that was not going to fly. Yeah, it was a beanball. And there was no way that was going to fly. So that was the smoke screen. So here we are years later, still a major city who supports its recreation, but yet doesn't have a rec center that we deserve. Not the old Riverside Junior High School, which is not fit for that. So the city administration is moving with the plan. We may have another plan. So we have some public hearings and talk about it, and nothing we can decide tonight on that. And what is the city's ability to bond? What do we want? Where do we want it? All of those good questions.
All of those questions. I would just
I don't know
say,
if you want to set up,
yeah, we could set up a workshop for that. I find that sometimes community meetings that are set up because of my, work schedule, and people know how tenuous that can be, I'm not able at my best effort to make full meetings. I can probably catch in. I think specifically that day I was at the tree commission meeting. So there are days that there are multiple meetings in the city, and you really have to pick your battles. And they're all important meetings, but you just can't attend all of them. So I was happy to watch the video online, because that's where it was available, where the meeting that I attended isn't available online. It's an in-person meeting. So that's where I received that information. And I think that there's some good work there. as a taxpayer, I'm not sold on the overall plan for that specific. And that's why I think that we just have to be more engaged and have additional conversations regarding that.
Councilwoman Souza, the $10 million number, what was the basis for that, or?
So it was 5 million 20 years ago. So I just thought, conservatively, just double
What I
it
figured,
at
Yep.
best.
Yeah.
Knowing that, even though we bonded for the 10 million, we were probably going to go over that. And the city would, figure out a means, just like the administration has, getting grants and funds that may be applicable to getting a facility like that built.
Yeah, the school construction, I mean, that effectively doubled over a 7 or 8 year period.
Yeah.
And it's much worse now,
Right.
so.
But I'm not looking to build a,
Right.
20,000 square
Taj
foot
Mahal.
facility either.
Right.
Something modest that the community can use, that's not grandiose. I mean, we have, there are ways. Is it nice to live in $1 million house? Sure, but maybe I can only afford $250,000. So I like to think of it as being functional and reasonable for the community. What is it that we need or we're looking to use it for? And then build it out that way. Not let's put everything under the sun in here and hopefully we use all of it at some point or another. So it just has to make sense.
And I
Thank you.
agree. Let's wait and see what we can get from the APRA. In addition to the government setting aside, the governor setting aside the $47 million for these type of projects. Let's see what we can get from there. So in the case that the project is $10 million and we can get $4 million, then we would only have to go out for $6 million. So I
Right.
think so reduce that bonding amount.
Yep.
So I agree. Okay.
So we'll just continue this indefinitely.
Okay.
And we'll have some continued workshops or meetings to move forward so that everybody's in the loop of what's going on.
Yeah, I think it's reasonable to, say, let's have it as a discussion item in an upcoming meeting,
Oh,
whether
yeah.
we set the date and we specifically ask, Malcolm to talk to those specific things.
Sure.
Because,
So maybe
yeah,
in May?
that's,
One of the May meetings
Mhm.
or June.
Those are the 2 meetings in May.
I'd say 17.
15th.
Sounds like a good number.
And you want to do that to have Malcolm, to have Malcolm present.
Okay. Yeah, we don't need a vote for that.
no.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Next item, please.
Next item is adjournment.
Before we adjourn, I would like to address one final item, and I would like to say happy birthday to the deputy clerk.
Thank you.
Oh, happy birthday, Leah.
Thank you.
We won't sing.
It's not on the
So,
agenda.
no, it's okay.
I'll take the head.
Nobody brought a cupcake or anything.
I know.
Nobody told me. I would have brought a
No,
cupcake.
it's okay. The office was
candy.
very kind. They made cupcakes and Brennan pizza.
Okay.
That said, I move
So-
to adjourn.
We have a motion to adjourn.
I second that motion.
We have a second on that motion. Roll call vote, please.
Yes, sir. Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morado.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council President Brito.
Aye. Thank you.